All right. We'll get started. We're waiting on Amy.
Vamos a comenzar.
One sec, guys. Okay. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us this evening. We are happy to have the Alexander Neville Foundation joining us for their webinar on fentanyl and social media drug trafficking. We're going to start out with a short video, and then Amy should be joining us after that to give her presentation, and we will open it up for a Q&A at the end. So Aaron, if you want to take the screen and start that video.
Okay, thank you. Oh, it says I'm disabled. Can you provide me
No problem.
control?
I'll give it a try now.
All right. I'll mute myself. Sorry, my dog started talking.
You don't even know what you want. I'm done.
Look at me when I talk to you. You sit there and tell me.
Unresponsive at this time. ETA about 2 minutes. Anything further?
My name is Dominic Tierno. Since I graduated high school in 2014, I've had the great honor of directing a number of documentary films about drugs and drug addiction. Our mission is to revolutionize drug education by telling real-life stories that motivate young people to make one of the most important decisions of their life, and that's the decision to not use drugs. 2020 was the worst year for drug overdose deaths that we have ever seen. In the beginning of summer in 2020, I came across this article. A 14-year-old kid from a town I grew up in had died from what appeared to be a drug overdose. He's a smart, funny guy who, like many kids, was struggling with some anxiety issues and decided that he would turn to drugs to see if he could help himself with that. What happened was he went and bought this pill, this Oxycontin pill, from a guy he had known because he thought that pill might ease the pain of what he was going through mentally. Well, he didn't know it, but that Oxycontin pill wasn't a real Oxycontin pill. It was a fake pill. It looked just like the pill that he wanted to try, but instead of Oxycontin, it was made with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid known to be 50 to 100 times the strength of morphine. That one pill he took that night killed him almost instantly, and his mom found him dead in his bedroom the next morning. Before I can even finish that article, I'm scrolling through and I see another linked article. Not far away, around the same time, another 14-year-old dead from fentanyl. So then I go back to Google and I type in fentanyl deaths. I hit search, and then it all made sense. I saw another kid, and I saw high school students, college students, young adults, all recent, all over the country, all dead from fentanyl. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, these aren't just normal overdose deaths. These people think they're taking one drug and turns out they're being killed. Why have we not heard about this?
It's a drug 50 times more potent than heroin, and doctors say just touching it can send you to the emergency room. We're talking about the synthetic opioid fentanyl.
The first time I heard about fentanyl was my sister busting in my house being like, don't touch anything in his room, it's fentanyl. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what's going on right now. So most people haven't heard of this because we haven't been talking about it. Back in 2013, when it first started showing up, only about 3% of drug users were dying from it. Now we're looking at over 50% of drug deaths being attributed to fentanyl. If Alexander could have got a lesson, I wish he knew about fentanyl. I wish he understood that fentanyl poisoning is real and that every time you try something, you're playing with your life. It is pill roulette every time you try it. As a mom of a kid that was just trying to experiment, that's where it is. As a mom of a kid that died just wanting to experiment, I wish I could just shake you and tell you and make it real for you. But I don't know how to do that. I won't be there when you're faced with these decisions. I know that if he knew the effects of his passing, it would crush him. He never intended for me to find him on his bedroom floor. He never intended for his dad to administer CPR, trying to save his life while we were waiting for the paramedics. Even his 12-year-old sister wanted to run in there and try to help do CPR, but I held her back. Alex didn't intend for me to see him wheeled away on a stretcher and put into an ambulance. Alex had no intentions of me seeing him lying on a stainless steel table covered with a sheet with only his head showing. Alex had no intentions of me knowing what it felt like to kiss his face for the last time. The images that I'm left with of that day replay in my mind on a regular basis. Please do not put your family through this. And please, 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 I beg of you, learn about fentanyl now. Don't wait until your best friend has died, or a brother or your sister. Learn about it now so you can help your friends. You can tell them, you can warn them. You can be a very important part of saving lives.
This would be how much cocaine somebody would have to ingest to kill them. This is the approximate number of prescription pills one would have to ingest to kill them. This is the amount of heroin the average person would have to ingest.
Esta es la
to kill them.
cantidad de heroína que una persona tiene que ingerir para que los mate.
Fentanyl? You're gonna have to bring that camera up here real close to see it. This much fentanyl would kill you and I if we split it. They put fentanyl in cocaine. They put fentanyl in heroin. They put fentanyl, as we already know and talked about, into counterfeit pills. It's odorless, it's tasteless, you don't know it's there. And when you find out it's there, it's too late. You won't even know it. You'll be dead. 2,500 people would be killed by that amount of fentanyl. Does that sound like a drug to you? Does that sound more like a poison? I was a police officer for 31 years, and during my time in narcotics, I'd never heard of fentanyl. In homicide, I saw many, many tragic things. I saw people that were killed by shootings, stabbings, beatings. Nothing that I saw at that particular time would have ever prepared me to see Jessica. I was at work. I got a telephone call from my wife, Cherie. She was frantic, uncontrollable, screaming into the phone about Jessica. And I knew something had happened. Jessica lived with her boyfriend, Nicholas, and a stupid decision in which they ordered and had some cocaine delivered to them, to their house, resulted in them ingesting it. And my daughter, at that particular time, became forever 29 years of age. Jessica didn't want to die. She has a beautiful daughter, Alara, who is now with Cherie and I, and we are raising. And she had everything to live for. Jessica knew about fentanyl, you know, from talking about this issue after she died with her friends. I discovered that Jessica had a friend that had even died a couple of weeks prior to her death. And Jessica had spoken to her friends about being afraid. Well, if you knew about it, why would you even risk it, sweetheart? You knew it. Why did you make that bad decision? Who knows? Those are things that you'll never answer. We're just trying to prevent it from happening to somebody else.
Dealers are using social media to show off what they've got, infiltrating feeds of ever younger teens curious about this flashy lifestyle. With more addicts and overdoses by the day, they've got drivers on demand delivering any drug to your door 24/7.
Social media app has changed the game when it comes to narcotics. Fentanyl's all over the place, and just massive amounts of it. And some of them are going to fall trap to that.
4 years ago, DEA in Arizona seized 0 fentanyl. This last year, we seized enough fentanyl to kill 70 million people. You're playing Russian roulette out there when you're taking these pills and you're buying this stuff off the street.
Social media has completely changed the landscape of the drug trade. Most people start by searching for what they think are prescription medications, and drug dealers respond saying that's what they have. But what you have to be careful about is what you're asking for and what you get can be two different things. And if you're buying the stuff from somebody online, their bottom line is they're just looking to make a quick buck. They don't have your best interest in mind. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Unless you're getting these drugs from your doctor or a licensed pharmacy in a bottle that has your name on it, you may as well assume these drugs are fake. You're not getting the real thing. Fentanyl's literally taken over the drug market. It's in everything. It's in meth, it's in cocaine. Obviously the counterfeit pills that are out there, we're starting to see it showing up now in marijuana. The people who make this stuff, who are putting the fentanyl in everything, they have one goal: to get you hooked. Fentanyl is highly, highly addictive. They're gonna trick you into thinking you're getting something you're not, to take you down that rabbit hole, to get you hooked on fentanyl and have you become an addict. Because to them, you're a customer, and you'll be a returning customer at that point. One of those times, you're gonna get enough fentanyl to kill you. Alex was in her bedroom at night, getting ready for bed. She went on social media in search of oxycodone. It wasn't hard for her to find a drug dealer, and she had what she thought was oxycodone delivered to our house. One pill had enough fentanyl to kill 5 people. My daughter took half of this pill and died instantly. In an instant, my life was changed forever. My last memory of my daughter is of her being wheeled out on a gurney. I saw my daughter brought into this world, and I saw her leave this world. I have 4 daughters and a beautiful wife. Every time we take a family picture, I don't see who's there, I see who's missing. It's an odd feeling to looking forward to dying, because you know that's when your heart will be made whole again. Alex would have never wanted this. Don't do it to your parents.
It's the end of the world at the palm of my hand. If you can't come with me, I'll understand.
It was March 31st. And that evening was one of the most special evenings we had had in a long time. I told him to come downstairs. I wanted to hug him. I don't know why. And he came down the stairs and he hugged me and he said, "Dad, I'm so sorry for all the things that I had put you through in the past." And I said, "Don't worry about it, Daniel. You're just a kid and you're just learning, but you're going places. You got a great future coming ahead of you. I'm just so proud of you. You have no idea." All right, Dad, good night. Love you. Good night, son. I love you too. See you tomorrow morning. Next day, about 8 o'clock in the morning, when I walked into his room, he was in a lying position facing up against the headboard with his hands over his chest. And I saw his eyes. He had a little blue on top of his lips. I screamed at the very top of my lungs. "Daniel! Daniel! Daniel!" I called the paramedics. They carried him down the stairs and put him on the first floor and started doing chest compressions. And then they took him to Los Angeles Children's Hospital, where we were put in a waiting room. And later on that evening, a team of doctors came in. And they said, "Your boy is just a shell of a boy that he was before. He's not coming back." My only child. I couldn't protect them. I couldn't save his life. I couldn't save my son, Daniel. My son is gone. It wasn't supposed to be this way. He was supposed to graduate from high school this year. If you love yourself, if you respect yourself, if you love life, you have a choice. Because it is between life or death. This is no joke. You can and will die. How do I know this? I can tell you that I've met thousands upon thousands upon thousands of parents nationwide. I wish somebody had sat me down and had this talk with me about what fentanyl does to people. I didn't get that chance. You do.
You know, there's always been one main problem with the films that we make, and it's the reason why we try to keep them as real and as relatable as possible. People just so commonly think that it will not happen to them. I'm talking about great people, nice people, cool people, intelligent people with big plans for the future, big potential. Gone because of one choice they didn't know would end their life. Fentanyl is coming for anyone and everyone. So the most important message that I can give to kids, to teens, young adults, anybody, is the same old message we've heard time and time again, and that's to really get serious about not even trying a drug. You see, back when we first started, I was telling kids not to use drugs because you might get hooked, you might get addicted. Now there's not even time for that. Now it's don't try a drug because you might actually not wake up tomorrow. You might actually not get another chance. One choice is all it takes. If you don't believe that, I guarantee you, at this point, there was someone very similar to you who wished they could be here right now to look into the camera and look into your eyes and say, don't do it. Please don't do it. Please, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Don't do it. Don't risk your life. So my question for you is, are you going to listen? Or will it be your family and your friends holding your picture, wishing they could have been there to tell you?
This is my son, Alexander. He died at 14 years old from fentanyl poisoning.
This is our daughter, Jessica. She was 29 years old when she was killed by fentanyl.
This is my daughter, Alex. She was murdered at 20 years old by a drug dealer who sold her a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl.
This is my son, Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson, killed at the age of 16 by illicit fentanyl.
This is my son.
Sorry, I went ahead and turned off the video.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Appreciate that. Now I'll introduce Amy Neville. Amy, I will turn it over to you to talk to our participants here.
Thank you. Sorry for my tardiness. It's been that was my 8th time seeing the film today. Sometimes I have to disassociate from it when we're watching it, so I don't go down that emotional roller coaster. But Aaron, will you turn on the slideshow for me? And full disclosure, I went and looked at the participant names of people who are on here, and I see some familiar names. Thank you for being here, and thank you for continuing to show up to these presentations. I'm grateful. There's a couple of new things that I've added, so hopefully you'll learn something new, maybe. All right. That's it.
Do you see it?
I do see it, but I see it in the view that you should be seeing it, not everybody else should be seeing it. Okay, thank you. And so Aaron's joining me tonight because Aaron is Alexander's father, if that didn't already get covered. My husband, Alexander's dad. And if we run a little long, he's going to stick around and finish up whatever Q&A we have going on because I have to pop into. I double booked myself tonight. I did not realize that. I thought I booked one tonight and one tomorrow, but the timing kind of works out. So I'm grateful for that. So anyway, I want to tell you a little bit more about Alex. Alex, for for the most part, was a pretty typical teenager. Yeah, he was pretty anxious, anxious his whole little life, but he loved skateboarding. He loved Boy Scouts. He really liked the adventure side of Boy Scouts, not the merit badge side so much. He was a pretty sensitive kiddo. He really felt things deeply, really empathetic, loved video games, you know, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty were his favorites. And I don't know, those of you who have kids, so Alex would have been 16 this year, but remember that when Fortnite was really huge, he actually got invited to the Fortnite Pro-Am because he was so active or so good at Fortnite. And I don't know if that's a good thing but that was an exciting moment for him. He had a little eBay business where he was selling off his childhood toys, which was kind of heartbreaking to me because, you know, I want to hold on to everything that keeps my kid a kid, right? As a mom. But he was, you know, he was growing up and you know, trying some things out there, and he really enjoyed that, having his little eBay business. His biggest complaint about us as parents is that he overshared with us. And so I always took that as a win. There would be times where he would tell us things and I would just be like, whoa, I can't believe he just told us that. And his experimentation with drugs falls into that category. I'm grateful he told us what was going on, but also, you know, it was heartbreaking. It was hard to hear, but, you know, long story short, Alex had this funky period in June of 2020 where his moods were really up and down. He was sleeping at weird times. And so we asked him, like, what is up? Are you taking something? I wanted to take him to the doctor. No, Mom, I was up late. I ate something funny. And of course, you know, puberty being in full swing, the mood swings kind of seem to be on par. But after about a day or two of me asking him to take him to the doctor, he's like, okay, I got to talk to you guys. Long story short here. I wanted to experiment with Oxy. I got some from a drug dealer on Snapchat. It has a hold on me and I don't know why. And at that point, our best guess is maybe he had been in this experimentation phase for 10 days. And so, you know, and we didn't know about fentanyl. We thought we knew about these things because we knew Alex was experimental by nature and we'd cross this bridge at some point, but we had no idea about fentanyl or the depth of harms on social media. You know, we looked for those sexual predators and those bullies on social media, but I didn't know I was also looking for drug dealers and, you know, diet fads, you know, that led to eating disorders. There's such a plethora of issues out there that no one's been talking about. And it's still hard to get people to talk about them. So anyway, that next day I called a treatment place to get Alex in. They needed to call me back with a recommendation. And that day we went about our business. Alex got his haircut. He and his dad went out to lunch and bought candy at Five Below. And Alex delivered some of his eBay packages, went out skateboarding, all the things he normally did. But he went out to go see some friends because he, you know, as far as we knew, he was going to, at some point, any moment that week, he was going to go into a treatment program and not see his friends for a while. So he wanted to go see them. And he came home. And he went up to his room, we said goodnight, and sometime after 9 o'clock, Alex took the pill that took his life. Doesn't get easier saying that, but Alex had you know, I went to wake him up the next morning for an orthodontist appointment, and it was just too late. But one thing I want to tell you is that the treatment center called us. The call from the treatment center came 4 minutes after his time of death, and you know, I didn't know till later on, and that call that I had a voicemail from them. And I tell you that because I want you to understand that this is an urgent matter thing. We thought we were dealing with prescriptions, like one Oxy wouldn't have taken Alex's life that night. We had no idea the timeline we were on. We didn't understand that these pills could mean instant death. And unfortunately, we learned the hard way. So from there, we've set out to learn everything we could, meeting with national level experts on these topics. That includes our teenagers, because these kids know all of this stuff about social media that we really just don't have any idea about. And that's how we got into this space. Okay, I talked a lot about Alex. I don't know. I don't think I talked about him that much at all today, but if you could go ahead, Aaron. So the fentanyl problem is really different, right? So back when I was in high school, you know, when most of us were in high school, if somebody died from drugs, you could kind of stereotype that death, right? And it wasn't kids at our school that were dying from drugs. it was adults. It was, somebody down the line, somebody that had been dealing with a substance use disorder for years and years. But nowadays we're talking about the first time users. Alex, even though it was 10 days and he was hooked because fentanyl is so highly addictive, he still falls into that, early use category. The casual user in the film, Steve talks about Jessica, and she was partying for cocaine, she got some cocaine, thought she was going to party that night, and obviously things didn't turn out as planned. And then of course, folks with substance use disorder, people who are hooked on heroin, they know their dose of heroin, they know how much they take each day, but now it's getting mixed with fentanyl, or fentanyl is completely taking over the heroin market, and they're dying just like Alexander did, or just like Jessica did. So we need to start looking at this problem in a very different light. And then the bystander, I want to spend a little extra on this because some of you might be school officials, or maybe you come across something, a friend comes over to your house, a kid's friend comes over and there's a substance in their backpack, you touch it, and now you're like, holy cow, what do I do? So fentanyl is not transdermal. It will not go through your skin. So if you get it on you, Aaron, what are you doing? Going crazy on me here. It's okay. So fentanyl won't go in through your skin. Now, if you have an open wound on your hand and you touch it, yeah, you're going to have a problem. But what happens most of the time is, we see this with first responders, is they get on a scene, they're treating a patient, and they suddenly realize that they've probably had a fentanyl exposure. And then they either have a panic attack, and that causes a problem, or they touch their eye, they have it on their hands, they touch their eyes, they touch their nose, they touch their mouth, and then they have a problem. So if you think you've came into contact with it, your number one job is to stay calm, and then wash your hands with soap and water, change your clothes, whatever you got to do. And if you still want medical attention after that, by all means, seek medical attention. It is okay. All right, next slide. So you heard Steve in the film say, does that sound like a drug to you, or sound more like a poison? So we started referring to these deaths as fentanyl poisonings. And that is largely in part because even those with heroin who are dying, they think they're taking one thing and they're getting something else. Bottom line, like if you came over to my house and I offered you a nice big piece of chocolate cake and you took it, but I poisoned it with arsenic, are you dying from a chocolate cake overdose, or are you dying from arsenic poisoning? Again, Alex, if he had got an oxycodone that night, he'd still be alive. But again, that's just not happening. Legitimate prescriptions are not available in these spaces. And so, but they're being advertised as such. So I really just want you to keep that in mind. And also when we talk about poisoning, it's a term that's relatable. As soon as we're pregnant with our babies, we're poison proofing the house. We're putting the poisons up. We have poison controls number. It is a poison can happen, and we understand that. But when we say overdose, a lot of times people will say, oh, we don't have a drug problem in my house, so that's not going to happen here. And they don't listen to the messaging. But as we all know, we are now living at a time where you don't have to have a traditional substance use disorder in order to die from drugs. Okay, next slide, Aaron. So this is Mikhail, and that's really his code name, and that's really not his picture, just full disclosure. But this is a kid that lives in Orange County, lives in Capo Unified. And so I want to keep his identity safe when we're in these spaces, because he doesn't want people talking to him about it. So Aaron, you're out of control over there. You've got crazy fingers. So you can go ahead and go to the next one. So Alexander is the first fentanyl-related death that Mikhail knows of. He and Alex have been friends since kindergarten, all the way through middle school, up until Alexander passes away. And he understands Alex's death and the concept of fentanyl poisoning. Go ahead to the next one. Fast forward to the first day of high school for him, and he's friends with his neighbor, and he gets to her house that morning to walk to school, and she's passed away. She's dead from fentanyl poisoning that morning. Next one. And there's sweet Catherine. Catherine and Alex and Mikhail all know each other from elementary school and middle school. Catherine used to walk to and from school with us a lot. She used to ask a lot of questions back and forth. She was always a bundle of energy. If anybody out there knows her, she was very, very energetic, brought a lot of energy to things. And she got a tooth pulled and needed pain medication. And somebody gave her something for the pain she was in, and she lost her life. Next one. Jack and Mikhail were on the football team together. Jack took something over a weekend and dies over a weekend in August of 2021. Next one. And then come on around to the first day of school in September of 2021. There's a party. Kids they're partying. Some of them take something, 3 of them go down, 1 of them dies from fentanyl poisoning. You know, this is 5 kids that one normal average high school student knows. This isn't some, you know, a group of kids that are all doing drugs together and they're just falling apart one by one. This is just normal everyday kids doing everyday things. And of these 5 kids, 2 of them were taking something for pain, thought they were taking a painkiller, and 4 of them died in their homes where their families found them later, which, you know, it's supposed to be the safest place. Something interesting happened. So Mikhail's mom was worried about him and asked me to come visit him. And so I went and saw him and we took a walk and we were talking and crying and laughing and all the things. And he was talking about John's death and he says, no, Miss Amy, he didn't die the same way Alex did. He died from a pill that was mixed with something. And that blew my mind because that's what we're talking about. How am I missing that? Where's the disconnect there? And so I started talking to more and more teens. I do listening sessions with teens regularly to find out what's going on in their lives. And I came to realize that these drug dealers, when somebody dies, they get out on Snapchat, on Instagram, wherever it is, and start talking about it and putting it right back on the victim, right? Oh, they took too much of something, they were drinking and they took something, or, oh no, it wasn't my drugs, they must have got them somewhere else. So they never have anything to do with it, which took me back to some pictures that this mom sent me from her son's phone. Her son died 2 weeks after Alex. And it's the drug dealer out on Snapchat denying to have anything to do with Alexander's death and denying to have anything to do with a death that took place in the drug dealer's apartment 2 weeks before Alex. Can you not control yourself, Aaron? So anyway, these drug dealers are out there. Am I boring you? You have to keep it interesting. These dealers are out there controlling this narrative. And the thing that blows my mind is our kids believe them. They think these dealers are their friends and they believe what they're being told. Go ahead to the next slide. Just the next slide. So why is it impacting our adolescents, right? So medications are all around society, right? We are an over-medicated society. There's a pill for everything. So taking a perceived prescription pill off of social media isn't that big of a stretch of the imagination. Again, the ease of purchase on Snapchat. Snapchat is the largest open-air drug market that we have. These drug dealers lie to our kids. Our kids are at this unique time in their life where they want to be treated more grown up. They want more clout. That's their big word, right? But yet they need your permission. They need $20. They need a ride from you. And so these dealers come in, just think like a sexual predator. We know that they groom our kids. These dealers groom our kids, and what they're not going to do on that first interaction, they might do on the 10th interaction. And, you know, our kid will never do that until they actually do it. And so unfortunately, they're getting taken advantage of that way. We know from the CDC that 44% of high school students are likely to try drugs at some point. 10 years ago, maybe not a big deal, but nowadays they're dying. Peer pressure is real. They're constantly connected right here all the time, and they're not kind to each other in those spaces, on those social media spaces. And then depression is peaking. I do want to point out here that Snapchat came out with a report back in July that said how they're combating the fentanyl crisis in the US. And you read it, but there's a paragraph in there where it states, well, teen drug use is on the rise because mental health issues are on the rise. They do not acknowledge their role in that. If you take the rise of social media, the rise of eating disorders, the rise of suicide ideation, the rise of bullying, the rise of sextortion, you name it, all these things that are impacting our teens, these negative things that are impacting our teens are rise at the same rate social media grows. So social media is definitely a huge contributing factor in this. Next slide. I want to touch on marijuana real quick. It's been coming up lately. I've been getting a lot of questions. And when I do these teen listening sessions 2 years ago, teens were vaping nicotine. Nowadays, they're vaping THC. And what I want to point out is that part of why THC is so prevalent with our teens, and I hear it all the time from well, at least my kid only smokes weed. Okay, that's horrifying but we're also operating without all the information. So the weed that these parents used to get, because, everybody's done weed and they turned out fine. I hear that all the time too. It was a 4% THC, 2 to 4% THC we used to get. Nowadays, in these vape pens, it is a 60 to 95% THC. It is destroying our children's brains right now. It is making them sick. It is causing harmful behaviors. It is causing the suicide ideation. Most kids that are showing up in the emergency room these days with either suicide ideation or suicide attempts have marijuana in their system. It is also causing a lot of marijuana-induced psychosis. Again, these kids, these kids going to the emergency room is on the rise. And so I really encourage people to take a harder look at marijuana, what the marijuana being sold today is doing to our kids. Okay, next slide. So again, we talked about Snapchat a little bit. These are all people who've lost their lives through pill purchase on Snapchat. It is, again, prevalent. I hate to sound like a broken record, but Snapchat really is. I get reporters that'll ask me, hey, can you find a drug related to TikTok or what have you? And I can't. It always comes back to Snapchat. Go to the next slide. So here's just real quick drug emoji code. If you go to drug emoji code DEA, it'll take you to 2 sheets of all kinds of emojis that you'll see, but you can see here different things. Like at the time of Alexander's death, we spot checked his social media. I wouldn't have known if I saw some of these things that it meant drugs because no one was talking about it. So DOC's drug of choice, PI is parents investigating, POS, I think we all probably think we know what it means, but in this case, it means parents over shoulder. CD9 is code 9, means somebody's watching. KPC is keeping parents clueless. Blue is for the blue M30s. Parents, oh shoot, I forget what PAL stands for. It's escaping me at the moment. I can't remember right now. Shoot, I can't remember. But then if you look at those combinations, all of those different emojis there mean something. That first line is cocaine. The second line is marijuana. The third line starting with the grapes, that's cough syrup. The M that's the line that those things mean pills or fentanyl for that matter. And then we get into, my brain is broke right now with the 8 ball. Aaron, help me out. What is that? I know what that is. Oh, meth. That's meth. Sorry. And then with the needle, that line is heroin. And of course, mushrooms, that's an easy one to figure out, right? And then that gas tank means they can get you gas or you can get gassed, which means you can get drugs from that person. The rocket ship means, they've got things to make you blast off. The plug means that they can give you the hookup. The plug is usually the most obvious one. So look for that in people's profiles. And then the pie means that they're making large amounts of drugs. Okay, go to the next one. So this is what I tell the kids when I go to present to them is how do we help each other, right? I really believe these kids are their greatest influence, right? I can stand up in front of them and cry and tell them all the facts, but at the end of the day, they're really going to listen to each other. So I hope that they remember the film, they remember talking to me when they're faced with these choices and something clicks and they are able to say, hey, wait a minute, we shouldn't do this. I always encourage them to seek help from a trusted adult. But I will tell you that the number one question that I get after a presentation from youth, they text me privately is, what if I don't have an adult I can trust? Whether that's perceived or they really feel that way, it's heartbreaking. And so I'll take them through the kind of a Q&A to help determine where there is an adult in their life that they can trust. So far, we've been able to come up with somebody in every case. So I haven't had to figure out what plan B looks like, but I probably should figure that. There'll be a day where I can't figure it out. And then of course, do not take anything that's not prescribed to you. Absolutely. And that goes for adults too. And you should know that we are facing an Adderall shortage as a company. So if your child or you for that matter, take prescription Adderall, we're running out. Maybe you've already experienced that. So go to the doctor, get with your kid's doctor, come up with a plan B because we do not want our kids turning to Snapchat to find Adderall. Adderall is just meth with fentanyl in it. Drug dealers now are advertising their Adderall protocols on Snapchat, which obviously is just drugs that could potentially kill them. So keep that in mind. Next slide. Overcoming stigma. We have to overcome stigma in our communities. I hear it all the time. Not my kid would never do that. Well, my kid did. So why don't you tell me what kind of kid does that, And I give people real examples. We're always told that our community does not have a drug problem. Every community has some level of a drug problem. Like, why would we wait for it to get out of control to tackle it? So we need to tackle these things. And as you know, that slide didn't come up, Aaron. The Orange County, oh, it's probably not in here, shoot. That in Orange County, fentanyl is the #1 killer of 17 and under, and that is a fact, so keep that in mind. And then naloxone. Naloxone is a medicine that gets between your opioid receptor and the opioid and can help reverse a poisoning or an overdose. So hopefully that it's not in there, Aaron. If you don't have naloxone already, I'm not saying you need it in your house, but your neighbor might need it. The kid down the street might need it. Somebody at the grocery store might need it. So get it and keep it on you so you're always prepared. Go ahead, Aaron. You're a couple behind. So how do we help our kids? The biggest thing I want you to think about when it comes to our kids is that they are having a lived experience we don't have, and we are judging them based on that. We set this up. Unfortunately, we were duped by these social media companies. We've been duped by these marijuana companies, and this giant experiment is taking place on our kids right now. And we need to rein it back in. We need to take back the power from these companies to help our kids. You know, people get all, oh, kids these days. I'm of the thought that like, oh, adults these days, we need to give our kids a break, and we need to get in there and we need to help them. And I know usually people want to run home and take Snapchat off their kid's phone. I know that's not going to help anything, right? Other than cause a big fight in your house. So go home, ask your kid, hey, what do you know about drugs on Snapchat? And the way they answer that question is going to tell you everything you need to know. And maybe they don't know anything, but they might open up about a bully or somebody sending them inappropriate pictures. And now you've got this other conversation that you can have. Go ahead, Aaron, next slide. So through our foundation, we have a peer-to-peer youth outreach program. You can see it on the website, but basically it's peers teaching each other about these issues and helping each other through these issues, and then doing PSAs or drug prevention posters and kind of doing the work alongside us. Go ahead, Aaron, next slide. Just some great resources. If you're a numbers person, familiesagainstfentanyl.org has great reports. They've taken all the CDC information and put it in a way that's easy for all of us to read. And then if you want to know more about social media issues, Childhood 2.0 is a movie you can watch. It's about 1.5 hours long. Maybe watch it by yourself, not with your kid, because it's the kid's perspective telling you all of these issues that are going on. At the time of the film, suicide was the #1 killer of our kids, but nowadays it is pretty much fentanyl. And then there's a TED Talk by Tristan Harris. It's 17 minutes long. I encourage everyone to watch it. You're going to watch it and be like, oh my gosh, I've fallen trapped to this mind control, as he calls it. It's very eye-opening and very interesting. And then if you know bereaved families in our area, there's too many of us. They are also a really great resource. Unfortunately, we've all become experts on a subject that we wish we knew nothing about. Okay, last slide, Aaron. And that's my contact information. You guys, I'm an open book. Ask me anything about this. The weirdest thing I hear sometimes is, well, I didn't want to ask you a question because I didn't want to remind you. Well, in order to remind me, I'd have to forget. And I'm certainly never, ever going to forget this. So please, please, please ask me the questions. We want to help you. We want to help your kids. You know, in our situation, a little bit of information would have really gone a long way for us. And so we want to help you. We want to help you get through that. So that takes us to the end. So if you have questions, we are happy to answer your questions. I'm not sure, can they put it in the chat? Is there a way they can do that, Jimmy?
Yes, we have a Q&A enabled. So if you do have any questions and want to type it into the Q&A box, I can read those out so everyone can see them. And we have, thank you, Aaron and Emily, or Aaron and Amy for joining us. We're very happy to have you guys involved for education purposes. And we've had them out at multiple high schools. I believe you have one at Capo Valley next month.
Oh yeah, so in April, there is going to be Capo Valley on the 11th. I'm sorry, the time escapes me. Catherine actually went to Capo Valley, the one in our slideshow. And then on the 12th, Laguna Niguel is having a town hall. And so look for information coming out on that. I don't know if the school would advertise something like that, but I can always send you the flyer once it's ready. So, you know, this really is going to take a community effort. And then, you know, in addition to these fentanyl presentations, we've evolved into having social media harms presentations, a danger of the Snapchat presentations. So if there's something you want to know more about, we've got the conversation. We're ready for you.
That's great, and we're happy. We're going to keep you guys involved with the districts, and you know, if your PTA or your school wants contact information, or wants, you can contact my departments. You can contact them directly. they're more than happy to partner with everyone. I'm
And
sure.
my bias is Capo, you guys. I will drop everything for Capo. So.
Let's keep us at the top of the list. Let's keep her.
Yes, yeah, Alexander's friends all graduate high school next year, so I am committed through next year at the very least.
Well, it looks like we don't have any questions at the moment. So I know you have another meeting to go to, so I'm going to keep you. But again, I want to thank you both for being with us tonight. I want to thank all of our participants for joining and staying informed. And hopefully together we can make some great strides.
Yeah, and you guys, now that you've all listened in, some of you already have heard some of this information before, but I ask that you go tell 10 people now, because that's how we're gonna change this. We have to talk to each other. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Everyone have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.